More fallout from the Brian Flores situation with the National Football League. Where do we go from here? I know where I'm going. I'm going to the NBA. I saw John Moran and the Memphis Grizzlies show up at Madison Square Garden last night, not only to beat up on the Knicks, but to put the league on notice. And we got a lot of league stuff to talk about as well. It's Molly, it's Stephen A. And Lord knows who else. This First Take. You know the time.
Let's get right to it, Stephen A. On Tuesday, Brian Flores filed a lawsuit in Manhattan during the 2019 season, his first as head coach, in an attempt to tank to strengthen the value of the Dolphins draft pick. Miami fired Flores last month after 3 seasons with the team, including consecutive winning years in 2020 and 21. Ross said the decision was made because of issues with the collaboration within the organization, but Flores alleges his firing stemmed from his refusal to tank in 2019. Ross responded publicly to the allegations in the lawsuit for the first time Wednesday night. With regards to the allegations being made by Brian Flores, I am a man of honor and integrity and cannot let them stand without responding. I take great personal exception to these malicious attacks, and the truth must be known. His allegations are false, malicious, and defamatory. We understand there are media reports stating that the NFL intends to investigate his claims, and we will cooperate fully. I welcome that investigation, and I'm eager to defend my personal integrity and the integrity and values of the entire Miami Dolphins organization from these baseless, unfair, and disparaging claims. Brian Flores no longer standing alone. Hugh Jackson accusing the Cleveland Browns of being incentivized to lose as well. Kimberly Deemert, who is the executive director of the Hugh Jackson Foundation, said in a phone interview with ESPN that their proof is well documented and previously had been presented to the league. Deemert declined to say how much money was discussed. Here's Jackson with L. Duncan on the 6 o'clock Sports Center with more.
What I see is that it's not, I wasn't offered $100,000 for every game, but there was a substantial amount of money made within, what happened in the situation every year at the end of it. And I didn't, like I said, really truly understood why until all those numbers and you add it up and you go, what is this? And then you look at year 3 and 4 and it talks about winning games. It talks about winning 8 to 10 games, winning 10 games and winning the division. To me, that's amazing to me. And no coach takes a job to lose. And I think people understand that. You take jobs to win. Your contract says win, so you don't get paid for losing. And then here I am after being 1-31. I'm kept the 3rd year and given a contract extension that nobody knew. So that should tell everybody something right there. Why do you keep a coach who's 1-31 when your track record has been to get rid of coaches as fast as you can? You give him a contract extension. You keep that quiet. And the same people who were involved in all of these transactions are still running the organization today. So that means they must have been doing something right through all that losing.
Okay, a lot to unpack here. Damian Woody with us. Great to have you, Damian. So the Browns have denied these allegations by Hugh Jackson. To reiterate, Hugh said on SportsCenter that he went to the NFL about the taking issue. He spoke to Roger Goodell and nothing was done. Now, Hugh just joined KJM, where he told them he received $750,000 for tanking and incentives. Stephen A., how concerned should the NFL be over the tanking allegations specifically?
Well, they need to be incredibly concerned. Good seeing you, big boy. Thanks for being on the show this morning.
Same here.
They need to be incredibly concerned. There's no question about it. We're talking about the integrity of the game. That's what we're talking about here. And anytime we all understand that there are teams that want to lose games for drafting position. We understand that, and the NFL may need to take a different look at that, because whereas the worst team obviously gets the number 1 overall pick in the NBA, for example, there's a lottery just to dissuade these kind of actions. Obviously you can still get more ping pong balls available to you and what have you in the National Basketball Association, but it is not a lock that you're going to get the number 1 overall pick if you have the worst record in basketball. The NFL might need and may be forced to revisit that based on these allegations alone. We shall see. But if you're Stephen Ross and you're alluding to your integrity, to get to him specifically, the 81-year-old owner of the Miami Dolphins, let me look in the camera and say this. When you talk about you are a man of integrity, you had damn well better be if you want to remain an owner in the National Football League. Because if this is found to be true, the allegations that Brian Flores has made, and they are just allegations, we do not know for sure that this happened. But if it is true, that not only did you encourage him to throw games, but you tried to enforce it, even offering him $100,000 per loss. You've got to go. You've got to go as owner of the Miami Dolphins. If you are the owner Haslam for the Cleveland Browns and Hugh Jackson's allegations are found to be true, you, sir, have to go as an owner for the Cleveland Browns. We talk about minority ownership. We talk about the need for black empowerment and for black inclusion when it comes to the NFL ownership group. If it's true, those are two openings that should take place in Cleveland and Miami. Their owners, they should be forced to surrender ownership of their teams, period, if they had something to do with intentionally tanking football games and encouraging and paying off coaches. That is as egregious as it gets. And I want to say this as well. I think it's important, Damian, that some white folks speak up. And to get specific, I'm talking white coaches, because I want to know if any white coaches have been encouraged to throw games. I want to know if any white coaches were paid to throw games, because if that was not the case, if no white person comes forward proclaiming that that is something that they were offered, that is something that that was forced upon them, if there's no white coaches that are saying that, then what we have is a situation where, oh, the black dude has to do that. The black dude is enforced to do that. And then when you throw these games, all of a sudden you got a horrible record and you could never get a job again. Case in point, Hugh Jackson. Let's go to list. I had to call it up again. Hugh Jackson's record as a head coach in the National Football League in 4 years is 11-44. That's a horrible record. Yeah. One season, 2017, he went 0-16. Don't get any worse than that, okay? His record in 3 years in Cleveland was 3-36. These are horrendous numbers, and would explain why nobody was knocking on his door to give him an opportunity, which is why he had to go to Cincinnati after departing from Cleveland as a special assistant, okay? And now he's coaching at Grambling, and we wish him nothing but the best because he was a good man. And he came right here on this show on First Take, and we appreciated him showing up after he was released from Cleveland. But if ownership had something to do with that, essentially, in Brian Flores' case, where you're a first-time head coach, oh, so the brother has to go, and he's being forced to lose games and tarnish his own record and not prioritize winning. All we're going to see is the record. If it were not for Brian Flores, would we know about Hugh Jackson? Hugh Jackson didn't tell us any of this before. Hugh Jackson was on this show. Yeah. Hugh Jackson did countless interviews. He didn't tell us that he was being encouraged to lose on purpose and paid off. He did not give us that indication. So I know he told Keyshawn Johnson something this morning, and I know he did interviews with El Duncan on SportsCenter yesterday, but he did not tell us this all of these years, which means we would not have known if it were not for Brian Flores. I think we need to think about all of that, Damian Woody, and I want to know, were any white coaches in the National Football League offered or had forced upon them losing games and offered money to do so? Because if it didn't happen, then that means you saved such a mandate for the brothers. And that's a problem. Go ahead, Damian.
Well, listen, Stephen A., first of all, I want to echo the point that you made. If these supposed allegations turn out to be true regarding Stephen Ross and the $100,000 per game for losing each game, he should be stripped of being the owner of the Miami Dolphins. You can't have the NFL talking in one breath, talking about the integrity, the shield, the integrity of the game, but then one of your owners is actively throwing games. That's just, it just can't happen. And here's what I want to point out as far as the NFL is concerned in this aspect. Stephen, you remember the statement a couple of days ago the NFL put out in regards to this lawsuit, how they basically said it was without merit?
Yes.
It was without merit. And I just go back to one of Brian Flores' lawyers who said the NFL put more time into investigating Deflategate than they put into, at this moment, the allegations that Brian Flores has brought to the light as far as tanking, money offered by Stephen Ross. So what does that tell you, Stephen A? What does that tell you about this whole process?
Well,
What does that tell you? Like that,
you want me to answer? You want me to answer?
That worries me. That worries me. That are we going to get a real investigation into this whole thing? The fact that you're willing to put more resources and energy initially into Deflategate than this bombshell accusation by Brian Flores, that is disturbing. And so I have to say this as far as this whole deal with Brian Flores. The fact that you would offer a head coach, and more importantly, a black head coach, to tank, offer him money. Think of the disrespect that you got to have for a coach to offer him $100,000 per loss when we know how hard it is as an African-American coach to get said job. I mean, Brian Flores had to work himself up the ranks from scouting department to being, an assistant, a defensive coordinator, all to position himself to get a head coaching job. And then the owner is going to say, you know what? I'm trying to get a higher draft pick, so here's $100,000 each game if you'll tank these things. Think of the level of disrespect.
Let me interject.
Go ahead, Stephen A.
I feel compelled to interject. And I want to caution all my brothers and sisters at ESPN, black, white, and in between. We're the worldwide leader. We're the monolith. We're the mothership, as some people call us, okay? Let's be clear about something here. It is highly suspicious what's going on. There definitely needs to be an investigation. We all understand that. But Brian Flores made an accusation. We have to wait to see the proof. Stephen Ross, I don't know the man. I know about Rise. I know about his contribution to African-American causes. I know about the millions that he's thrown into all of that and whatever. But it's just an accusation. I don't mean it just as in it's not significant. I understand it's significant. But we have to remind ourselves, we live in America. You are innocent until proven guilty. Stephen Ross is categorically and emphatically denying these claims made to him by Brian Flores. Now, am I raising an eyebrow? You're damn right. And are both you and I, Damien, on the record saying he's got to go if this is true? Absolutely. Jimmy Haslam, the owner of the Cleveland Browns, if what Hugh Jackson said is true, he's got to go. There's no doubt about that. But what I don't want any of us doing is acting as if the man is quiet and went and hid in a hole or something. Or this is emails like the John Gruden situation where there's evidence that's been there and we've seen it and all of this other stuff, and the brother's got to resign. This 81-year-old owner for the Miami Dolphins has categorically and emphatically denied the claims levied against him by Brian Flores and his legal team in this civil lawsuit. So we can't talk about him as if he's guilty. We can say we're suspicious. We can look at him and say, oh, you got some explaining to do, my brother. You need to explain, you and Jimmy Haslam. You need to come out and explain yourself, no doubt about it. But we don't know. And as a result of that, the NFL has to investigate. And I hear your point about the investigation. But Brian Flores just came out with these accusations a couple of days ago. And oh, by the way, the accusation wasn't just levied against 3 teams, New York, Miami, and Denver. It was also levied against the National Football League office. Deflategate wasn't the case. Deflategate is under your purview. You had nothing to do with what was going on in New England. So you could bring the heavy house down because nobody was investigating you and the effort that they put forth towards Deflategate to find out what the hell was going on, who were the culprits, et cetera, et cetera. Well, it's easy to do when you don't have to ward off the shrapnel of cynicism coming in your direction because an allegation has been levied against you. That's not the case here. In this case, the allegation has been levied against the National Football League just a couple of days ago. So I'm not going to look at them as if they're dragging their feet. I believe they're going to investigate the situation involving Miami, in Cleveland, specifically because of Hugh Jackson, because that points to the integrity of the game. And they have no choice, and they know they got to address that. I believe they're going to do that.
Real quick, so they said they are going to investigate that, the tanking issue. The part that they didn't need to investigate was the hiring practices, because they believe the
their
NFL,
league office.
Yes,
right.
yes. That they weren't going to investigate, and that is what the statement they were standing by.
Right.
Not the tanking issue.
Exactly.
That will
Not
be
the tanking issue.
That will be investigated.
Not the tanking issue, nor were they letting off the hook New York, Denver, Miami. What the league is saying is us. Now, where they made a mistake is our clubs. When they include those words, our clubs, and then said the lawsuit is meritless, that's where they messed up.
But to Damien's point, tanking and throwing games is far more egregious to the integrity of the game than deflating footballs for a quarterback.
That's right. Right. But it just happened 2 days ago, is all I'm saying.
Yeah,
right.
but he's right.
Well, here's what I'm going to say, Stephen A. I think, as we talk about the tanking and all this stuff as relates to Stephen Ross and Jimmy Haslam, let's keep the main thing the main thing. Yes, we're talking about the tanking, but the main thing is the hiring practices. Okay?
Right.
Let's not
lose sight
forget
of
the
that.
substance right. We need to keep the main thing the main thing. Let's not get caught up in that. I'm not saying that it's not worthy of discussion,
Right.
but we need to keep the main thing here. The hiring practice is the big topic and the topic that needs to have the most light shined upon it in this whole discussion that we're having.
Totally agree. Because listen, when we talk about the whole social justice movement and all the protests and everything that was taking place in the aftermath of the murder of George Floyd, what folks keep forgetting and I keep bringing up is that it was a metaphor for what black folks believe has been going on for centuries. This proverbial knee on our neck keeping us down. That's what it was all about. And so for me, when I look at this situation involving Brian Flores, I'm saying if his allegations are true, let's focus on, like you just said, the hiring practices of teams within the National Football League. The NFL itself has been trying to enforce the Rooney Rule, but you can't make billionaire owners do what they don't want to do when you answer to them because they're the ones paying you. So as a result, everybody's lumped into it. It raises an eyebrow, but in the end, you're absolutely right. Even though tanking is a significant issue, we can't lose sight of what the real story is here. And the real story here is the hiring practices. Yeah. There's one black coach in the National Football League in 2022, when in 2003, the Rooney Rule was first implemented. There were 3 black head coaches. There are now less black head coaches, only 4 black offensive coordinators in a 32-team league, when we know most dudes getting jobs are offensive coordinators. Yeah. So it's a problem, and we don't need to lose sight of that.
So 2 things I just want to highlight and clarify. So, Damien, you're saying the NFL needs to investigate the hiring practices, that these fair practices are being implemented by each team. And then, Stephen A., I want to underscore another point that you said. Are there any white coaches that were asked to tank?
That's right.
And if so, they need to come forward.
Yeah.
And that's critical. And I haven't heard anybody say that. And that's paramount to this conversation.
And guess what, Damien? That really leans towards the major point both you and I want to keep everybody focused on is the hiring practices. Because when they talk about comfort or what have you, with white folks, they're talking about your comfort with them. Okay, we get along, we know each other, we have confidence in them, we believe they could be leaders of men. When you hire in black coaches, again, if Flores' situation, if Hugh Jackson's allegations, if both of their allegations are true, what you're saying is what you really, really want when you're hiring a black man to be a head coach is somebody you can easily manipulate. That's what you're looking for. The more you can manipulate them, the more you like them, as opposed to judging them on the merits of their job performance. This is a problem, and that's why we need to keep ourselves focused on that.
Really strong points by both of you. I want to get to another major story today, gentlemen. Jim Harbaugh called Michigan to inform the school that despite interviewing with the Minnesota Vikings on Wednesday, he will be returning to the school for the 2022 season. Sources telling our Adam Schefter, Michigan was, in the words of one source, elated to get Harbaugh's decision. Harbaugh told the AD that this would not be a recurring issue and that he would be staying at Michigan as long as the school wants him. Now, Los Angeles Rams offensive coordinator Kevin O'Connell has emerged as the favorite to become the head coach in Minnesota. That, according to Schefter and our Dan Graziano. Harbaugh did not receive an offer from the Vikings before he left. A source told ESPN's Courtney Cronin he had worked with the Vikings' new GM in San Francisco. Here's Courtney Cronin on KJM.
I think that there was this assumption from his side of things that did not line up with what the Vikings were intending Wednesday to be. And it was a real job interview. It was the exact same format, the same schedule, the same people that he would meet with that they did on Tuesday for Giants defensive coordinator Patrick Graham. So, Harbaugh came in, according to sources I've talked to, the last 24 hours.
Yeah, I need to hear the comments.
His intention was, I'm going there to sign a contract. And that just was not the case. This was a real job interview where he had to sell the team on him being the best fit for the job. And the fact is, it just did not, both sides did not agree eye to eye on kind of what the entire thing was. And that's why he left Minnesota on Wednesday without an offer.
Damian Woody, are you surprised the Vikings didn't offer Harbaugh that position?
I am surprised considering the status of Jim Harbaugh, the relationship he had with the new general manager in Minnesota, the resume that Jim Harbaugh has in the National Football League. I am a little surprised. Listen, I think that Jim Harbaugh really embarrassed himself in this situation. He really did, because going there with the assumption that he was going to get the job, and now he has to turn around and go back to Michigan, and he went to interview on National Signing Day. So think about that. Think about the ammunition that he's given, whether it's Ryan Day at Ohio State and other coaches around the country, as far as Jim Harbaugh is concerned, as far as recruiting. That's going to be a killer, because now every cycle that comes around with Jim Harbaugh, this is going to be weaponized. It's going to be used against Jim Harbaugh as far as going up against other recruits. So I think there was definitely miscommunication. The fact that Jim Harbaugh assumed that he was getting the job and didn't get the job, this is going to hurt him at Michigan.
I don't agree with that for a couple of reasons. Number one, let's understand something. Jim Harbaugh has a relationship with the new GM of the Minnesota Vikings. That's why making an assumption is something that's not off kilter per se, because if you have a close relationship with somebody and they've given you an indication that you're their guy, which by all accounts, Jim Harbaugh was given that indication that he's the guy, then that assumption is not a crime. That's number one. Number two, if you're Michigan, beggars can't be choosy. I mean, my God, the guy is 61-24 as the head coach of the Michigan Wolverines in 7 years. He just got them to the college football players for the first time. He beat Ohio State. Okay, so I mean, he's playing with house money, Damian. Because he finally beat Ohio State. So when you just coming off beating Ohio State, they just happy to have you back. And this is after cutting his salary in half from $8 million to $4 million because he knew he hadn't measured up to snuff prior to this season, where he ultimately beat Ohio State and get into the college football playoffs. So I think it's not a big deal in that regard. Last but not least, I want to say this. Having said all of that, I want everybody to understand I don't give a damn about this Jim Harbaugh story. I would care more if he went to Minnesota, to the Vikings, a team that hasn't been to the Super Bowl since 1976, by the way, when Fran Tarkenton was quarterbacking their team, okay? They haven't been to the Super Bowl since 1976, and Kirk Cousins is their quarterback. So even if Jim Harbaugh was there, he'd find a way to lose when it really, really counted. We don't give a damn about the Jim Harbaugh story because he's staying at Michigan. We'd care more if he left. Here's where the story gets interesting to me. We talk about Brian Flores, right? And we see the accusations that he's made. And we talked about Hugh Jackson, right? This guy, Kevin O'Connell. Let me apologize. It's not about you, my brother. You get the job. I wish you nothing but the best. I think you're doing a damn good job with the Los Angeles Rams. Y'all in the Super Bowl. There's nothing to question about that, even though it helps that Matthew Stafford is your quarterback instead of Jared Goff. Congratulations. You see this clique that's going on? Sean McVay, Kyle Shanahan, Matt LaFleur, now it's Kevin O'Connell, all these guys. These are boys. I mean, look at the resume. Everybody coached at Washington. Everybody coached in San Francisco. I mean, this guy, Kevin O'Connell, I got his resume right here. Quarterbacks coach in 2015 in Cleveland, San Francisco offensive assistant, quarterback coach again in Washington in 2017 and 2018 before becoming the offensive coordinator And then now you with the Los Angeles Rams. That little click going on. Now, I'm a fan of Kyle Shanahan. I'm a fan, real big-time fan of Sean McVay. I like those guys, and I respect the hell out of them. They've forgotten more football than I'll ever know. Matt LaFleur, you're lucky you got Aaron Rodgers. We'll see how much love you get when Jordan Love is your quarterback. We'll see, okay? But in the end, I'm noticing the click. And see, these are the kind of things that keep African Americans from getting the head coaching nod. Because I'm noticing African Americans are never part of those cliques. The only time they're part of a clique is when it comes to African American coaches. And since they ain't getting the damn jobs, how can they develop a clique and a tree for others to get opportunities? Here's the kind of stuff. Now listen, mind you, all of these, some of them don't look it, but all of them younger than me. All of them. By a decade, at least. Okay, every one of them. Every one of them. Sean McVay's in his 30s. Kyle Shanahan, Matt LaFleur, and these brothers. You understand what I'm saying? I mean, for all I know, they probably went to school with my nephew or somebody. I mean, damn. I mean, life is really, really, really good. And there's this little tree developing that I'm noticing. And all I'm going to say is this. White dudes that talk about how we listening, we hear you or whatever, but y'all ain't got no black friends. Last time I checked, y'all do. Y'all hire cats on your staff, right? You understand? Raheem Morris is the defensive coordinator on Los Angeles. Byron Leftwich and Todd Bowles are both coordinators under Bruce Arians and stuff like that. We've seen cats. I mean, damn, how come when it's time for hiring, the clique looks conspicuously white? And there's no brothers sprinkled into the mix. That's what I'm noticing. That's what I take from this damn story about Harbaugh. It ain't Harbaugh. It's the fact that Kevin O'Connell, all right, who's been there as a coordinator for 3 years, is now on the verge of becoming a head coach. But we got brothers that have been in those positions for years and ain't even getting interviewed.
Damian, before you jump in, to bolster that point, Stephen A., of the hires thus far, only one has head coaching experience, and that is Josh McDaniels. All the other hires thus far have no head coaching experience.
Zero.
Yeah, listen, I got a couple things here. I think number one, I think there's 5 other job openings still available, either 4 or 5. So we still have opportunities there. That's number one. Number two, as it relates to Kevin O'Connell, I got to say, Kevin O'Connell was my former teammate when I played with the New York Jets. Brilliant dude. Always knew, during my time with him, he was going to be a coach. There's no question about it. You could see it that long ago. So props to Kevin O'Connell. I think here's where I'm at, Stephen A. Here's where I'm at in this whole hiring process, Jim Harbaugh and et cetera. What I want from this Brian Flores lawsuit, what I want from it, I want a light shown on the actual process, the actual interviews, because what we don't get a lot of the times with a lot of minority, black head coaches is, are they getting feedback? Okay, when I interviewed, what are the things that I did do well? What are the things that I didn't do well? What brought about the decision that you made? I think we need to have more transparency from the decision makers, i.e., owners, as to how they came by these decisions, in the whole process, because everything is just so convoluted. It's all hidden behind closed doors. Guys don't know what they need to improve upon, the things they did well, the things they need to improve upon, during the interview process. That's what I need as far as this whole process with the lawsuit. We need to shine a light on that aspect, because without that, we're going to keep spinning our wheels the next cycle when the same thing happens over and over again.
Absolutely. Without transparency, there can be no progress in this hiring process and the effectiveness of the Rooney Rule, which is currently failing us. Stephen A., Damian, you'll be back with us in just a moment. Stephen A., you had something that you wanted to address on a different subject.
I did. I really, really did, because I made a mistake last week, and I want to make sure that I clarify myself. Last week, when discussing the incredible accomplishments of Andrew Wiggins this season, an all-star, by the way, congratulations to him, I introduced this religion in the discussion about vaccination. So let me say this, because people have been making some noise about it. I could have and should have been more clear in that discussion, because I fully understand that Jehovah's Witnesses have no specific opposition to the vaccine. I did not make that clear.
Yep.
So I want to make sure I make that now. My apologies for the mishap.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Thank you for that. And we
All right.
respect all people and all religions here
Absolutely.
on this show and on ESPN always.
Totally.
All right, when we come back here on First Take, my girl Nets fell to the Kings last night and have now dropped 6 straight. Brooklyn really missing Kevin Durant, falling to 5-10 without him. Keep in mind, his team was the favorite to win it all, not living up to expectations in the Big Three hype. Brooklyn currently 6th in the East. Here's Harden and Kyrie.
No, I think we've done too much talking. I think we've done too much talking. It's just we got to go out there and do it, and do it consistently. You know, we have times where we're great, then we have times where we're really bad, and we just got to find some consistency throughout the course of games, more times than not.
I've been in quite a few players-only meetings, and if we do have a players-only meeting, I know not to tell y'all because it turns out to be something bigger. There's a guess, you know, of what's happening and what's being said in the locker room, respectfully to y'all. But no powwows as of yet. You know, maybe who knows? But like I said, this is a growth period for us.
You know what, Stephen A., we enjoy obviously coming out to LA for the sunshine, all these things, but catching up with old friends, Chiney Ogumake, it is so good to see you.
I miss you guys.
And to have you in studio. On our production call, when they said you were in studio, I was like, yes, this is amazing.
Yes.
So,
Thank you for your voice. Glad you're back. And Molly, this is my big sis right here, so I'm glad to be here.
great to have
Well,
you.
we're proud of you. Keep up the great work.
And you're going to be on
Yes.
NBA today, guest appearance.
I have been summoned. I've been summoned. I mean, this is my girl here, Big Perk, and that was my boy. But that damn Malika Andrews, she's such a boss. You know, Stephen, I need you. Get here. Get here, Stephen. Come on to NBA today.
She would
so I
never
have to
say
go.
it
And
like
you know we're going to talk about that Knicks game. You know we're going to talk about the Grizz, what they did to the Knicks. I'm just going to give him some time.
Let me help with production real quick, then we'll get to the topic. Get the video when he's in the crowd with the fans.
Oh,
He's
yeah.
like, New York City. It's so sad. It's so embarrassing.
We're here.
Yeah,
We're here. We're here.
You need to get that. Tell your producers. All right,
Sorry.
let's focus on the Nets, though, because we can't really brag on them right now. They've lost 6 straight. The trade deadline's a week away. Chiney, is it a mistake for them to ignore trade offers for James Harden?
I don't think it is. And when you look at this situation that the Nets are in, a lot of people are going to be like, okay, they've lost a lot of games consistently the last few weeks. Also, you look at, okay, what did he do last night versus the Kings?
Yeah.
4 points. A lot of people will say, oh, maybe there's some validity to making sure you have, you know, a trade asset available if James Harden is, you know, the one that you want to move. But have you ever really thought, if we put things into perspective, that maybe all these conversations, the deadline, you know, impending, is maybe causing a little bit of this rift that you can see on the court? I think the biggest perspective that we have to really bring together when it comes to the Brooklyn Nets is that this decision, you know, to have a big three with KD, Kyrie, and James was a player's choice. They all wanted to play with each other, so much so that James Harden risked it all, per se, left Houston to join this crew. Now, the unfortunate part, and I think a lot of people need to understand this, is that James Harden, no matter what his numbers might be right now, has been the glue for the Brooklyn Nets. He's played 80 games, about 20 or so more than Kyrie and KD. He's the person that's going to give you your best chance to maintain your status in the East right now. You know, for a large portion of the season, without those two or with one or the other, he's been able to keep them in the top 4. Right now, this is probably the worst of it. I see why people are like, oh, you might want to explore. But, you know, myself as a player, that idea that your team is thinking about, you know, trading you, that could cause this experiment that you really put all your chips in the middle of the table to implode, when right now you really want to win a championship. That's where the Nets are.
Let me say this to you. It is a mistake for the Nets to ignore Harden's, you know, trade rumors and, you know, not taking phone calls. It's a mistake. You listen. You always listen. You have to. That's number one. But before I get into my point about James Harden, let me say this. I'm not really worried about the Brooklyn Nets. First of all, they don't have KD, who I believe, when healthy, is the greatest in the world. Yeah. He's a professional buckets maker. This brother is something special. I ain't concerned about them with him at all, okay? Milwaukee wouldn't be there if he wore size 12 instead of bigger size. They wouldn't even be in the championship, okay? They wouldn't be the champions, all right? That's number one. Number two, Kyrie, And it's really, really nice to see him conducting himself with class as he talks to the media. They're not peons. They're actually human beings that are asking questions that are worthy of being answered. Proud of him for doing that. This brother's a showstopper, and he reminded us of that against Golden State the other night when there was no Harden or KD, and he put on that show. Kyrie is something special. He's box office. I just don't trust him long term, so I'd pay him 1 year to 1 year, but I'd give him, he can make as much money as he wants 1 year to 1 year. As long as he's going to play, he deserves to pay because he's that special. I got to take a moment to give props to the rest of the Brooklyn Nets. Patty Mills, I think, has been sensational this year. Blake Griffin, suddenly he can dunk again now that he's no longer in Detroit.
Goodness.
He can dunk again now that he's no longer in Detroit. And he's been doing
But they did say he's out of the rotation.
That's
that
okay.
was a lot. Yeah.
But that's okay. I'm just talking about what I'm seeing from the young cats, the Claxons, the Cam Thomasons of the world, the Bruce Browns of the world. You know, I'm looking at these cats and their activity with the stars. They're complementary pieces that I think can give you some energy, and I like what I'm seeing. Let me get to Harden. Harden is averaging 22, 10, and 8. And he's having a bad year. Shooting 41% from the field, like 33% from three-point range. He's not Harden. I'd listen because there are questions as to whether or not he is what he used to be. Hamstring injury, weight issues, coming into camp out of shape, you know, for initially because he wanted to get out of Houston. And then this year, you know, after last year with the hamstring injury and all of this other stuff. I think this is just me personally, my experience. Y'all are just going to have to listen to me on this one.
Okay.
There's something to say about being happy. When you're someplace you want to be.
Absolutely.
He wanted to be in Houston when he was in Houston because he was with Daryl Morey and he was treated like royalty. You ain't the man in Brooklyn. That would be KD.
But James Harden hasn't said anything to the like that he's not happy.
I understand that. I understand it. You know I know that. But you also know we know a lot of things that don't get said, Shanae. You know that. Okay.
But don't you think he'd be happy if they were winning?
No. They listen. They've lost 6 straight, and they're still 29 and 22.
And also,
and by the way, before Kevin Durant goes down, before he went down,
these are reports that they are not taking calls. Not like they're not planning for contingencies.
I'm not saying he's like God miserable or anything like that. I'm just saying there's a difference between going to work every day and being ecstatic about it. And what I'm saying to you is that if Harden potentially could fight, because I don't think he's finished by a long shot. He's a superstar, and I think he will show it when it's time. But there's something to be said.
I have a question for you, Stephen.
To be elsewhere.
What would make James Harden happy right now?
Well, at this particular moment, nothing.
Oh, come on.
Hold on. No. At this particular moment.
Kevin Durant
being healthy.
Full-time Kyrie, all that.
100%.
No. I'm talking about Harden's game himself. We all know that KD coming back.
You want him to be the man he was in Houston.
I'm saying with KD out, you kind of need to be.
Yeah.
With Kyrie only playing road games, you kind of need to be. What I'm saying to you is when we talk about Harden's future, if Harden is contemplating anything, that would be the reason why. Because being a complimentary piece, how could it get any better than playing with KD?
But I think it's Harden's prerogative, right?
Sure.
Because this was all the players' design, right?
Okay, yeah.
And it's not necessarily the Nets. I know that as a front office, you have to plan for these circumstances. But right now, if I'm the front office and I'm saying he's the one that's most likely available for games, we're slipping in the standings, and you're not guaranteed the opportunity to get a superstar back if you trade. The deadline is next Thursday.
You know I'm not saying trade him. I'm saying listen because you don't know what potential
But if
offers will come
listening
down
can
the
make
pipe.
you unhappy so much that it forces a trade where you're not guaranteed to get a star, player to his caliber, that might put you in a worse situation than you were before.
Chiney's going to be back. You're going to be with us a lot throughout the show. We have 60 seconds left. Look at me. What would be a better situation for Harden?
Me personally, I think Harden would be better off in Philly, but Philly can't do that, and here's the reason why. You better not send Ben Simmons to Brooklyn. With Kyrie and KD, they'd win chips. You can't send him there. You got to send Ben Simmons out west.
Yeah.
You can't send him within the Eastern Conference.
I like that move. And Daryl Morey, he has a revolving door of star players, what we saw in Houston. So we can meet in the middle, Stephen A.
It could be a 3-team deal. Get you Harden.
All right.
Do that. Not now.
Chiney will be back. We got to keep.
Yeah, for sure. We ain't ducking no smoke, man. We're going to let everybody know we here. We're going to play hard, trying to get a win. And if you don't like it, oh well.
Stephen A., quick takes, let's go. The Grizzlies beat your Knicks handily at the Garden. Whose play stood out to you more, the Grizz or the Knicks?
The Grizzlies. The New York Knicks, unfortunately, I expected this. I'm very disappointed in what I've been seeing from them for months. I'm disgusted, but I refrain from that. I'm in love with the Memphis Grizzlies. I love their attitude. I love their athleticism. I love their moxie. They're not scared of anybody. They're not apologetic about it. They are coming, and they have put the league on notice that that is how they are. They talk and they back it up, and they don't do anything dirty. They just go out there and ball and dare you to beat them. I love the Memphis Grizzlies. I love what I'm seeing.
The young cats walking the talk. I'm with it. The Lakers got a much-needed win against the Blazers last night, thanks in part to a 30-point performance by Anthony Davis. Stephen A., can the Lakers get this type of consistency from AD?
I hope so. If he's healthy, he can do it. People keep forgetting that when we were critical of Anthony Davis because he wasn't playing up to snuff, shooting like 17% from three-point range, his perimeter shot seemingly evading him, he was still averaging 24 and 10 a game. Anthony Davis is a big-time baller when healthy. The question is not about his game, really. It's about his durability. And as long as Anthony Davis is healthy, you can rest assured he'll give you 25 and 8 a night with ease.
Okay, I believe with this one, the curmudgeon in you is coming out. Yesterday, the Washington football team revealed that they are now, wait for it, the Washington Commanders. You into it?
It's corny as hell. It's really corny as hell. I mean, when I said, please get a name, how the hell you going to call yourself the Washington football team? You don't even have a name. I know some people didn't mind it. I minded it because there's Washington, the state, and there's Washington, D.C., and it didn't even say D.C. You don't know whether they were even talking about
very
the Pacific
confusing, very
Northwest
vague.
Well, it was very vague. I think the name is corny, okay? But we'll have to adjust to the Washington Commanders. I mean, it sounds like a damn Pop Warner League. I don't know what the hell it is.
So do you prefer the Washington football team to the Commanders?
I damn near almost do because
Oh,
I
my
think the name
goodness.
is that corny. But nevertheless, they do have a name. They have an identity. Okay. We'll go with it. I would have preferred the Washington Generals. I would have
like
preferred
that.
the Washington
I like
Generals. That would have been much better than the
makes more
Commanders.
sense.
The Commanders. Command what? You're in the NFC least. What are you getting command of? You know what I'm saying?
Settle down.
I mean, what do you do?
Settle
I
down.
I don't know. Commanders.
We'll leave it there.
I mean, I wish them luck, though, because I got
Okay.
love for a lot of people.
Yeah, you got
in
a
that
lot of friends in
organization.
D.C. They're going to be texting you right now.
I do. They agree with me about the Commanders.
Okay.
I'm here to tell you.
All
It's
right.
corny.
Let's get in a break. Coming up, despite the lawsuit, Brian Flores coming your way. Huge news last night. Jim Harbaugh returning to Michigan. But how excited should Big Blue be to have him back? And the stalemate that lingers on. 1 week away from the trade deadline, are the Sixers making a mistake by not trading Ben Simmons? But first, we begin with Brian Flores, who's still in the running for the Saints and Houston Texans job, considering all the question marks surrounding Deshaun Watson's status with the double-digit lawsuits filed against him and how David Culley didn't really receive a fair shake as head coach. Should Flores really want that Texans job? And for that, we bring in our Dan Orlovsky. Where is he? Let me see him. Vegas, Dan, how we doing? Dan, you going to see any shows while you're out there? Because I just want to let you know, John Legend is there, Carrie Underwood. I'm a fan of both.
Not going to see any shows, Molly. I actually have to work out here, so I'll be doing a lot of that.
Oh, that'll be
you're in
first. You
Vegas.
working? Looks like you already got
yeah.
a tan. So
In
I don't know how
Vegas.
much working you're doing.
I might gamble a little bit. I might throw a couple shekels down on
Okay.
a couple roulette wheels.
let's
Always
go.
hit on 16 World, so we'll see.
Whoa.
The Pro Bowl.
What the?
The
Yeah,
Pro
the
Bowl.
Pro Bowl. I was
Yeah.
like,
The
yo,
Pro
why
Bowl.
is he in Vegas?
Yeah.
Why is he in Vegas?
Yeah.
No, I'm not
but it's
vacationing,
okay.
Stephen A.
Yeah.
No.
All right.
All
I'll
right.
just check.
Before we move on, though, I'm not buying that you are doing a little bit of pool time, but it's okay.
Go lose some money playing blackjack. Go lose some money playing blackjack.
I'll
Just use
ask you for a
$100.
Venmo then.
You know, we know you're cheap. You can lose $100 though. You can lose $100.
He's
Go
right.
lose $100.
He's right. I am.
That's right.
I am.
That's right.
I told my wife and my kids I'd gamble a little bit for them, but that's about it.
$100.
I'm sure your
$100.
wife was really grateful. You'll
$100?
gamble her money a little bit. Come on, Dan.
$20, $20 max.
Get it
$20
together.
max.
Yeah, enjoy
Yes.
the pool. Keep pretending to work. We'll be out there
One
for the
chip.
draft. Stephen A., your thoughts though on if Brian Flores should want that Texans job after what we just saw, what happened with David Culley
Hell
and
no.
everything going on in the organization?
Hell no. He should want to avoid that job at all costs. Look, Nick Caserio, that was his first year as a GM. My question to him is, why didn't you fire yourself? You didn't get. I mean, Deshaun Watson couldn't play. okay? We all knew that. We all knew what situation David Culley was walking into. You hired the man. The only thing you did was make sure that he was going to get his money over the next 3 years, which I respect. But that's ownership. That ain't you. Nick Caserio sat up there, brought in David Culley, and then made him a scapegoat because of a job he didn't do. So to me, he should have fired himself before he even thought about firing David Culley. Everybody applauded the hard work, the commitment that those players put forth, and how every single week they fought, they scratched, they clawed. That's what we were talking about when we talked about the Houston Texans. And we said it's a damn shame that David Culley has to deal with this situation because clearly they weren't the same without Deshaun Watson. I mean, you got Davis Mills and Tyrod Taylor and cats like that. I mean, Davis Mills, he started 11 of the games, went 2-9. We understand what the man was working with. And so when I look at it from that perspective, and you got a GM that clearly is not accepting accountability, your first year on the job, you knew how to find a scapegoat. I mean, damn, you didn't even wait until you acquired some experience to figure out how to get scapegoats. You just came out the womb finding scapegoats for your ineptitude, firing David Culley. Should have fired himself. So to me, why would I want to go and work for somebody like that? I'm sorry. I think there's a lot of question marks about ownership in Houston. I think there's a lot of question marks about that GM. And if I'm Brian Flores, if I'm a first-year guy, Dan, that never had a job, then I'm going to do what David Culley did and take it because it's an opportunity of a lifetime. If I'm somebody like Brian Flores, who's been a head coach in the league for 3 years, had a winning record the last 2, universally respected as a head coach, I'm sorry, there are better opportunities than the Houston Texans for Brian Flores to entertain.
Yeah, so I would disagree. I think he should take the job if it's offered to him, or at least want that job. But 2 caveats to what I say, Stephen A., because you bring up a lot of good points. But number one, there's only 32 of these jobs in the world. These still are NFL head coaching jobs. And I know a lot has been brought to light, certainly over the past couple of years, and obviously by Brian Flores recently. But there's only 32 of them. That is still a really, really important thing to point out. And we don't know if it's the only opportunity that he might have when it comes to being a head coach this year. You know, is it Houston and nobody else as an option for him? Because if that's the case, then I still say yes. I understand that they have, some history organizationally that we all sit there and go, what the heck are you doing as an organization? But the reality is this. They went through their hardest year when it comes to the organization with free agency ability to spend and draft picks. David Culley, in many ways, bore that burden. He fell on the sword because now they have draft capital back and they have free agency capital back, so they can build a football team again. Deshaun Watson, I would assume, it seems, is likely to be traded. That is only going to bring more assets into your organization. And so I think that, the reality of, okay, there's only 32 head coaching jobs. You just filed this lawsuit courageously. If you can do that while also being able to do the thing that you love to do, coaching, and this gives you that opportunity, maybe not perfect and maybe not ideal. And honestly, Stephen A., maybe not what you deserve, but it's still a head coaching job. And my question, I guess, back to you would be this. I think so much has been brought to the light when it comes to, and I've talked with Marcus Spears so much about this and learned so much of representation. Don't you think it's important for more African-American black head coaches to be head coaches in the NFL? So if this is the opportunity that can be given to him in this hiring cycle, I would say, isn't it important for him to say yes and get back on that head coaching journey?
No, not in this case. And let me explain why. Profoundly respect your position, Dan Orlovsky. I see exactly where you're coming from. There's no problem with your thinking. It makes total sense. But I'm going to give you what I'm going to personally term the black perspective in this regard.
Sure.
That's a losing situation. You departed from Miami winning football games. You're universally respected because of the level of production you showcase. There are numerous former assistants for Bill Belichick that we can point to respectfully that didn't have that luxury. Even though Bill O'Brien had a winning record a lot of times, we didn't like the job that he did in Houston. You trade DeAndre Hopkins. It seemed like your personal feelings got in the mix, even though you said it was a contract issue and some of the other moves that you made that were highly questionable before you ended up having to depart and getting saved by Nick Saban to be his offensive coordinator at Alabama. And now you're back in the mix as a potential head coaching candidate somewhere down the line. We look at the Romeo Crennels of the world, the Charlie Weisses of the world, Josh McDaniels when he was in Denver, along with various others. And we respect all of these people. But there were some question marks as to what they were able to accomplish as head coaches, okay? In Brian Flores' case, he goes to Miami after struggling that first year. Even with Tua Tagovailoa as his quarterback, he won 10 games his second year. This year, he ended up winning like 7 or 8 straight after a 1-7 start and ended up going 9-8 and was in the playoff picture until pretty much the last week of the season, or the second to last week, the penultimate week of the season. So when we take that into consideration, Dan Orlovsky, you take a job, you don't have a quarterback, you take a job with an organization that's 4-13, you don't have a quarterback, you don't know if you're going to have a quarterback that you can rely upon, you don't know if you can trust the GM in Nick Caserio, who's already shown his willingness to find a scapegoat instead of firing himself, okay? Ownership with the McNairs has been questionable, to say the least. You go there and you potentially tarnish what you built in terms of your reputation in Miami. That would be the hesitancy, because then they're going to point to the record instead of the conditions far off, where you look at how dismal the situation is in Houston.
Dan, you know what I sort of compare it to from an athlete's perspective? When we talk about success for an athlete, much of that is dependent on where they're drafted, right? The situation.
Absolutely.
And that determines their success. And I kind of look at this in the same way. This would not necessarily be a position to succeed. So you could argue it could do more harm.
Yeah, and that's kind of why I caveated it, Mally, with like, if this is the only option. You know, if he's got multiple other options, or he feels good with potentially the New Orleans job or something like that, then that point is valid. But if he wants to be back in coaching, if Brian Flores wants to be a head coach again in the NFL, and the Houston Texans are the only organization, at least this year, that is going to offer him a job, I get it with the McNair family. Ever since Mr. McNair has passed away, that ownership has faltered. But he also knows Nick Caserio, the general manager, from their time together in New England. He may trust him more than other people do. I don't know. And so I think that, you know, coming off of what happened this past week and him filing that lawsuit and him saying in his own words, I understand that I'm putting my ability to be a head coach, or the likelihood of being a head coach in the NFL again at risk. If he wants it and they offer it to him and he's good, I think he's good enough, I think that this is an opportunity for him to get back and be a head coach again in the NFL.
Yeah, that's fair. Strong points on both sides. All right, Vegas Dan will be back with us. Again, he's going to gamble a little bit for his
Vegas Dan. I like that.
For his family.
Do I hit on 16 or do I
kids.
do I sit on 16? Do I hit or do I pass?
Hit. And by the way, like I said, you hit, but let's also understand this. The $20 is ridiculous. That's $25 is one chip.
I got 4 kids, man.
Listen, man. $100, man. You making some money, man. You making some money. I mean, ESPN's paying you well. Come on now, stop it. You can afford $100 at the blackjack table.
Marcus said he's going to teach me how to play craps today. So
Dan, let me give you.
Yeah, that is a game Marcus would know how to teach.
Let me give you some Molly Karam advice here. I've never bet $1 in my life, Dan. You only bet on yourself. Okay. We're just going to leave the segment.
Put it on a T-shirt.
There we go.
Put it on a T-shirt.
You know she's lying.
I can already see his side eyes, and I'm absolutely not lying. Please. Bet on yourself only.
You never bet ever. Okay.
Honest to God, okay. I have never bet $1.
Okay, that's very corny. That's very corny on your part.
Why is that corny on my part?
You're going to go to Vegas and never bet. My mother played the slot machine for crying out loud. And she never gambled. My mother played the slot machine.
I have my money in my pocket. That's not thrilling to me. Like drinking and gambling, that doesn't do it for me.
All right.
Shopping, now that does.
I didn't say drinking. I didn't say drinking. There's nothing wrong with $100 at the blackjack table.
There we go. All right. Still to come on First Take. Jim Harbaugh is a Michigan man for the long haul. That's what he told the school after a 9-hour interview with the Vikings yesterday that ended with no offer from the team. Many thought Harbaugh to the Vikes was a lock, and apparently so did he. Here's our Vikings reporter, Courtney Cronin, on what went wrong.
I think that there was this assumption from his side of things that did not line up with what the Vikings were intending Wednesday to be. And it was a real job interview. It was the exact same format, the same schedule, the same people that he would meet with that they did on Tuesday for Giants defensive coordinator Patrick Graham. So, Harbaugh came in, according to sources I've talked to, the last 24 hours, his intention was, I'm going there to sign a contract. And that just was not the case. This was a real job interview where he had to sell the team on him being the best fit for the job. And the fact is, it just did not, both sides did not agree eye to eye on kind of what the entire thing was. And that's why he left Minnesota on Wednesday without an offer.
Okay, Dan. So yesterday, Schefter tweeted that Michigan was elated when they heard that Harbaugh was returning. But you know that quote, Dan, the grass isn't always greener on the other side. Sometimes it's greener where you water it. So I don't know if I'm being petty, Dan, but should Michigan
Did you take
be
that
elated?
from Aaron Rodgers? Did you steal that from Aaron?
No, why? He said that.
Okay. He said it a couple weeks ago.
Oh, okay. No, honestly, I didn't. But I like that one. But with that being said, you get the sentiment of the quote. So should Michigan be elated that Harbaugh's staying?
Yes, absolutely. Michigan, during the Rich Rodriguez and Brady Hoke era, in between Lloyd Carr essentially and where Harbaugh is now, was 24-32 in Big Ten play. 24-32. Harbaugh has absolutely solidified Michigan as being back to one of the premier top 10 football programs in college football. And I'm not taking shots at these other programs, but he did save them from becoming a team or institution like a Nebraska that is trying to find their footing again, or Texas that is trying to find their footing again, or a Miami that is trying to find their footing again. I know Jim Harbaugh is not Dabo Swinney when it comes to the wins, or Nick Saban when it comes to the wins, or even Ryan Day when it comes to the wins. But they are a very good football team. He's been there for 7 years, Molly. 7 years. And I'm not going to count this 2 seasons ago, so essentially the 2020 COVID season. In that 6 years, outside of that 1 year, his wins are 10 wins, 10 wins, 8 wins, 10 wins, 9 wins, and 12 wins. I mean, the guy, all he does is win 10 games a year. And I understand the standard of Michigan is incredibly high, but we've seen what Michigan was without him. And people are going to point to, well, he did this on National Signing Day. If you listen to the college football people who are attached to that, it really wasn't that big a deal because most of their class, or the great majority of their class, was already locked in. So if you're Michigan, you're sitting there going, we've got the guy that we think has proven to have us be a consistent 10-win football team, and coming off of the college football playoff appearance last year, gives them the chance to be, again, in the conversation for a national champion.
You know what? We don't disagree there. I thought, to me, it's a non-story. The story is if he had left, because
I agree.
Leaving Michigan is a big deal, particularly when the first 6 years, as good as your record was, because you ultimately have a 61-24 record, which is not shabby. The bottom line is when before this year, he had to take a pay cut from $8 million to $4 million. His job was on the line. That's why he took the pay cut and changed the staff. And what does he do? He finally beats Ohio State, and he gets to the college football playoffs, winning the Big Ten championship along the way. And so they had a very, very successful season. Had he left Michigan after that, that would have been a big, big story. The fact that he didn't get the Vikings job, first of all, when have the Vikings been relevant? They haven't been to the Super Bowl since 1976. Okay, that's number one. Number two, Kirk Cousins is their quarterback. Number three, they just find reasons for things not to happen for them, even though they've been in a couple of conference championship games. Here's the story for me, Dan, and I brought this up in the first hour, and I'm going to bring it up to you again because I'm wondering how you feel. We talked about Brian Flores. We talked about some of the things he has to deal with. We talked about some of the things, obviously, his allegations against 3 NFL teams in the National Football League, what they brought to light, and the plight of African-American coaches in the National Football League. I'm looking at the dude that was competing with Jim Harbaugh for the Vikings job, Kevin O'Connell. And if he's watching, this is no shade on him. You end up getting the Vikings job, congratulations. You're having a successful year. You're doing a good job for Sean McVay. Props to you. It's no knock against him. But I'm noticing this little tree Dan Orlovsky. See,
Yeah.
the Washington, at the time, the Washington Redskins, before they became the Washington football team, before they became the Washington Commanders, okay? Before all of that happened, all right, or while Jay Gruden was the quarterback, was the head coach. Who did he have on the staff? He had Sean McVay,
LaFleur,
Kyle Shanahan, and all of this other stuff. Matt LaFleur, yes, him, Mr. 27th ranked offensive coordinator in Tennessee before he gets to coach Aaron Rodgers, and then everybody's acting like he's so phenomenal. We'll see how much love he gets once Love's throwing the football for him instead of Rodgers, but that's a different subject for another day. Bottom line is he won 13 games each year. He's been a head coach in the National Football League. He deserves our respect in all seriousness. But I'm noticing this tree. It's Sean McVay. It's LaFleur. It's Kyle Shanahan. Kevin O'Connell. If he gets the Vikings job, all of these. And I'm just I'm wondering when some brothers are going to be sprinkled in there. Because when I look at the NFL, when I look at NFL Live, I see Dan Orlovsky and I see my man Swagoo. Of course, the lovely Mina Kimes and the wonderful Laura Rutledge, okay? But I see Dan Orlovsky and Swagoo. I look at ESPN, we see me. We see me, we see you, we see Ryan Clark, we see Damian Woody, all this stuff. Every time I see these clicks, that, these trees that are developing with the branches, the tentacles that reach out and blesses the NFL with their presence. No wonder we've got just one black coach in 2022. Because all of these trees, all of these cliques that have developed, you got brothers on your staff. Ain't any of them your friends? How come none of them are included in these trees? That's what stood out to me, that we sitting here talking about Kevin O'Connell, and I hope listen, God bless him. He's a talent, and I hope he gets a job one day. But I'm just wondering about stuff like that when clearly you got coaches that have paid their dues who happen to be black that never get mentioned.
No, I think it's a good point, Stephen A. So when the news broke yesterday of Kevin O'Connell being the likely candidate that's going to get hired, I think, from Graziano, I was on the plane out to Vegas, and I thought, okay, my immediate mind was, well, who's he going to take with him to Minnesota to be his offensive coordinator? And the immediate thought was, well, the offensive coordinator for the University of Kentucky, Liam Cohen, because Liam Cohen comes from the Los Angeles Rams. So I was like, okay, Liam Cohen's going to go there. Then who's going to replace Kevin O'Connell? And I thought, well, maybe Liam Cohen will go to the Rams then. And then Steve Weish said in a tweet to me like, hey, Thomas Brown, who's the running backs coach out for the Los Angeles Rams, who running back, long time at Georgia, he could be a guy that I'm hopeful enters into that offensive coordinator role that not only will then give him this springboard opportunity to be a head coach, but also comes from that type of tree, that question that you're asking. So I think Thomas Brown is a name that it's super important in all these kind of revolving pieces that are going on with these head coaching things. And then I also say this, Stephen, I know I love the Shanahan tree more than anybody in the world, right? I love it. I also would say this, because I thought Justin Fields should be in that tree. If I were the Chicago Bears and Matt Eberflus, I would very much so consider hiring Pep Hamilton as my offensive coordinator. Yep. He's got a little bit of experience in that tree.
He had an Indy background as well years ago. Did a great job.
And 2 years ago when Justin Herbert won Rookie of the Year with big, powerful, big arm, strong, athletic guy, Pep Hamilton was part of that kind of, that quarterback room, and I would bring him over to the Chicago Bears to be my offensive coordinator. I think this is a real conversation, right? This is a real conversation that no one should be running from having.
Absolutely. By the way, I'm going to leave it at that because all your points were profound. And one of the other profound things you mentioned was Steve Weish.
I love Steve Weish.
Steve Weish from the NFL Network. Let me tell you something right now. That's been my brother for many, many years. I love. He does an outstanding job reporting for the NFL Network, and he is a dear friend who I love very, very much. He's a good man, doing a great job. I've known him for over 20 years now. I miss that brother. I got to make sure I see him.
His wife, his sons. He has a great family.
One of the best people you'll ever meet in your life.
He's a class act, and obviously a pro's pro. I just want to reiterate this one more time. Of the 5 head coaching hires thus far this season, I'm going to include Connell in this. All are white, and only one has head coaching experience, and that would be Josh McDaniels. Dan, Vegas Dan, we have to say bye to you. I think your tea time or your pool chair is ready for you.
Go gamble. $100.
Go pretend to work.
Just $100.
Go pretend to work on NFL Live.
By the way,
is the whole NFL Live crew out there with you?
Yeah, we're out here for the next 2 days.
By the way, something else very, very important.
What?
The one thing that I have to critique Steve Weiss about is a little bit too much gray.
He has a full head of hair.
Yeah,
I like when you embrace the gray.
I'm just saying, embrace it, but I'm just saying.
Hold on.
Well, Steve Weiss used to want to tease me. Steve Weiss, what's up with the gray? I'm seeing excessive gray.
Hold up.
That's all I'm saying.
Weiss has a baby face, though.
He does.
He does.
The baby face is
Stephen A. Molly, I'm gonna put $100 down for each of you guys, black or red.
Do that.
No.
Do that.
You know what?
Black.
You know
black.
what?
Always been on black.
Dan,
always been on black, Elvis.
Dan,
you don't know that?
Dan, for me, bet on yourself and keep the 100 in your pocket.
Come on, Molly, just give me a color.
It's about black.
I'm not giving you a color.
Black. You're going to walk away with an extra $100.
Why would I throw away my money?
No, how about winning?
I might win.
How about winning?
Get out of here.
How about winning?
You know the odds.
Put 100 down for Wifey, too.
It's not about odds. That's
okay.
Right. Do that. Do that. Buy
no, let me give you better advice. Just go buy her a purse. She doesn't want the $100 on black or red. Go buy her a gift.
One purse at a time. You can only carry one purse at a time.
Thank you.
Okay. So
especially somebody as cheap as you. You ain't going to have any money in it. So why is the purse so important?
Excuse me. First of all, I'm not cheap. I'm not cheap. I'm very generous. And second of all, you could get the matching shoes.
You're cheap with yourself.
Oh, my God.
You don't want to spend money on yourself. You just proved it on national television. You know what I'm saying? Let's go. Let's go to break.
I'm cut from a
plan to get him back on the court. And so what are we doing here?
Okay, my girl Chanae is back. Ramona Shelburne has a great deep dive on .com right now on the Ben Simmons 76ers saga. Meanwhile, the Sixers have won 5 out of their last 6, and they are in serious contention for the 1 seed. All right, Stephen, I'll start with you. Are the Sixers making a mistake by not trading Ben Simmons?
I believe they are, and I've stated that for a long time. I think Daryl Morey usually pulls the trigger. Ownership. My belief was they're probably holding them back, knowing them the way that I do. But in the same breath, I've also heard from a lot of people that's not the case. They're not holding Daryl Morey back at all. He's determined to make sure he gets equitable compensation for Ben Simmons, which I believe he could do. I believe he should have done this summer, to be quite honest with you. And I think that Daryl Morey, to some degree, is blowing this. Here's the deal with Ben Simmons. It is a catastrophe what this situation is. It is bad for the NBA. And even though Rich Paul is not at fault because he just has to do what his client insists on doing, there are others that would say agents got to have some control over your clients to some degree because of what's in the best interest of business. The owners are coming for the NBA players. I'm telling you what I know. They're not playing. And the reason why they're not playing is that you can get away with a lot of things, you know. But getting paid for not playing on purpose is something that a lot of people are going to hold you accountable for. Now, we know not to minimize the importance of mental illness. We get all of that. We all understand that. Why I bring it up with cynicism is that we have to understand that there's a lot of people that don't believe Ben Simmons. It's not that they're saying mental illness is not an important thing. They're not trying to minimize the significance or the importance of that in any way. What they're saying is they don't believe he's telling the truth, that the second he got traded, he'd be ready to play, that the same guy that isn't ready to play mentally is fighting them to make sure he gets all his money. That kind of stuff, you're going to pay. And in the end, the last thing I'm going to say is this. The biggest reason they should move. I got Joel Embiid. I'll talk about him with MVP and later on. But Joel Embiid is having a monster year, and it's being wasted. And we all know he ain't the most durable dude in the world. He usually gets hurt. And now that hasn't happened. You're going to waste away a championship opportunity to prove a point. That's where I'm at.
I know a lot of people hear about this championship run that they can make right now, but I think we need to reframe it as like a championship window. Because I know Philly, that's your stomping grounds, right? That's where you have your ear to the ground and you know all the gossip, you know all the tea. So I understand. Most cities,
but I hear what you say.
Oh, is that? Oh, yeah, you're right. That's definitely LA too, okay? That's definitely, we like you here. In Connecticut, I guess maybe there's gossip out there, right, Mo?
There ain't no NBA team out there. We don't care about that. But go ahead.
But when you think of the situation, I understand that the owners are like, we want our players to play because they're making millions. But I do think it has to be put into context that he's already lost out on $19 million. and he's made about 60, so that's about a third of his potential earnings. To me, if you're willing to lose that much money, something might be real in your life. And the city of Philly, like, they're done with the process. Like, they don't want to be patient anymore.
And they should be done.
And I get that. And they have the right, person in charge, Daryl Morey, to make a potential trade. But if he's not making one, and as you mentioned, he's inclined to pull the trigger, maybe there's a reason. The only team that really came up the last 2 weeks as a real potential was the Sacramento Kings. Daryl Morey said that he wanted an all-NBA player in return for Ben Simmons. He probably won't get that.
Right.
All right,
Not now, because Ben Simmons is hurting his own marketability to get traded.
I think that we knew when Ben Simmons played his final game in Philly that was likely going to be his final game if he had his way. Right? Like, his mindset to enter the team again, even though the team was like, oh, we want you back. Like, we knew that it was not likely. He was sticking to his guns
After the
there.
loss to Atlanta.
Exactly. So, given that circumstance, now you look, all right, you're not getting an all-NBA player. Mm-hmm. The player or the players that you can get, the assets, they better be a home run for you. And I think that's exactly, they better be a home run.
Let me say this to you. First of all, let's dissect, because I know you know your basketball, okay? Okay? Let's define home run in the place, in the situation involving Ben Simmons. Defensively or world. He was my defensive player of the year last year. He got my vote. Lethal.
Yeah.
Offensively, that's a different matter. Now, I understand he's 6'10", athletic, nasty ball handling skills, high basketball IQ. But he couldn't shoot to save his life. And on top of all of that, when you combine that with the fact that we've now learned he gets a bit petrified in certain moments, that further dilutes his offensive prowess. So now when we talk about finding somebody, well, let's just say hypothetically, okay? If I worked out a 3-team deal and I got a CJ McCollum and I got a Buddy Hield, not to say that's the case because I know better, but what I'm saying to you is
not all NBA, but yeah,
right?
valuable.
Right? Well, guess what? Between the both of those brothers, I'm significantly better offensively, and I make up for what I lack defensively because them brothers can put up buckets. So this mentality that I got to get an all-world, all-star player if I'm Daryl Morey, I think is a bit misguided.
I think he's just trying to raise the value by saying
but he made a mistake. Yeah. He should have did it over the summer and then made sure you made a move. And by the way, the $19 million that you talk about, that's why I brought that up. Mm-hmm. Ben Simmons is not thoroughly convinced, and this team is not thoroughly convinced. They lost that money. They're fighting to get that money. So he didn't take the L. You see what I'm saying? His whole point is I'm fighting for it. So you got the nerve. Think about this for a second. Think about this.
Fight for money while you're not playing. Yes.
On purpose. I think I haven't played.
Let me tell you,
I haven't played, but I want my money.
Once I have a contract and I have, a long-term relationship with you, I'm still fighting for my contract whether I play or not.
Whoa. You don't ever put yourself in that equation because you show up to work. See, the point that I'm trying to make is you are going to have that attitude. I'm going to have that attitude. You're going to have that attitude. Her sprinting to work the other day, sweating on the air and all of this other stuff. You're going to have that attitude. You know why? Because we show up to work.
Yeah, I go to work and then to practice.
When I went off on Kyrie, he talked about no damn vaccine. I said, yo, man, you got to show up to work. Showstopper, box office, people walking through the turnstiles. They standing in tunnels and you ain't there.
Look,
that's a problem.
Good agenting and good representation means you fight for your money even if you're not available, right? So I feel like they're doing their due diligence.
I'm not faulting the representation.
Yeah,
of course not. The representation is doing what they're supposed to do.
Not many people can still be in this situation if you don't have that representation.
We can debate how Rich Paul has elected to handle it, but at the end of the day, he's doing the right thing, fighting for his client. What I'm saying is you the player, you know you ain't working and you fighting for your money on purpose.
He is working out, and I do believe if you were to find he's working out.
Hold it. Okay, you didn't just say that. You didn't just say that.
Look, let me tell you, he's rested. I think he's going to make an effort to play if he were to be traded.
Oh my God.
He's going. Look,
if he was traded.
If he were traded, he's making it.
But
he's trying to stay ready
right now.
I mean, the team he's not playing for.
The team he refuses to play for.
Let's get back to this, Stephen A. The reality is the only team that we really heard that removed themselves were the Kings. And even if you add a 3-team trade, I'm not sure if you're going to get, even if it's not all NBA, great players that will be able to position Joel Embiid right now for a championship versus waiting to the offseason.
You already lost me. You already lost me. Because what you just said, did you know that if you get on the Peloton and break a sweat and stuff like that, and you get on the treadmill and you break a sweat, it can actually help your lungs better, which helps your voice and all that stuff. So guess what, Sinead? Guess what, Sinead? All right, ESPN, I don't need to show up on first day. Let me go in the gym. Let me work out. Let me get a break of sweat.
If he were to be traded,
so my voice is all right.
If he were to be traded,
if
he were to be traded, he'd make an effort to play for the new team. He's not going to play for the team that you knew he closed the door on.
So in other words, you're admitting, and I know you know this, you're admitting here on national TV
that he's that he wants to play.
The second he got traded, he'd be ready to play, which means he ain't playing for the Sixers on purpose. Then what you fighting with them about your money for?
You're fighting because that's what you're obligated through your contract, and you have this, but also, you know, you have these extenuating circumstances where we don't know the real day-to-day as to why he's really out per se. And
you just gonna say if he wants somewhere else, he'd be playing.
I'm not gonna dismiss the fact that you never know situationally why he's not playing.
I agree with that.
You know, and they're trying to protect the athlete from themselves. Yeah, he's creating an environment. Yeah.
All due respect, that is not what Janae Ogumake said. What she said was, if he got traded, he would play. So my point is, you're not playing for the Sixers on purpose, and you're saying he's got a contract. You got a contract to play.
Maybe part of his issues that he's trying to work through are because this environment is not best for him right now. You know what I mean? And that's a reality that athletes have to face a lot.
Hold on. So how was it good?
He's not the norm.
How was the environment? Because as a guy that worked in Philadelphia for 17 years, I would know about the Wells Fargo Center.
Yeah.
I lived there.
I love Philly.
Okay,
I'm a fan of it.
He's saying he'll be ready to go elsewhere, but in Philadelphia, we have to give him grace.
Come on.
Because
you
of the personal situation.
All of those years under those conditions. All of a sudden.
Yeah, but that's why I said the last game, that condition could not be repaired.
By the commercial break. Saved by the Bell was before your time.
No, I love that.
That was a good show.
Yeah.
You just helped the owners.
Stephen A. Let's get to the MVP race in the NBA. Caesars Sportsbook currently lists Philly big man Joel Embiid as its favorite for MVP. However, reigning MVP Nikola Jokic isn't too far behind. Giannis, Steph, and Ja round out the top 5 of the shortest odds to win MVP. But those are just odds, right? So I want to hear the top candidates from Stephen Naismith himself. I did not write that. The Stephen Naismith part.
That's right.
Someone else wrote it.
Say it if it's true. Say it if it's true. I'm giving it to you right now. Now remember, here's the deal. The list is fluid, okay? It's fluid, ladies. It's fluid. That's just for right now, and it ain't just based on numbers. Keep that in mind as well. We're going to go to the top 5 of my MVP candidates right now as we speak this season in the NBA. Give me number 5 on the list, please. Right now. Give it to me. Devin Booker. I'm sick and tired, including myself, not giving this brother the love that he deserves. Averaging nearly 29 points per game since January 1st, and the Suns are 14-1 over that stretch. Best record in basketball. He's got a whole lot to do with that as well. Monty Williams, good Lord have mercy, what a coach this man is. Let's go to number 4 on the list, please. Give it to me right now. Give it to me. Nikola Jokic.
Wow.
Why am I putting him up there? Because Denver is still in the mix. Listen, Jokic averaging like 25 and 13. More importantly, no Jamal Murray, no Jamal Murray, all right, no Michael Porter Jr. He's in a mile-high city in the altitude, deal with all that nonsense, and still doing his thing. I got to give love where it's due. I was thinking about Giannis, but that's what I got to go with. Jokic, give me number 3 on the list, please. Give it to me right here. CP3.
Whoa, 2 Suns.
Chris Paul, 2 members of the Phoenix Suns, averaging an NBA best 10.4 assists per game this season. They're the best team in basketball. Who doesn't see the leadership? What do we talk about? When we talk about greatness for people, we talk about leadership and floor generalship. When we lament what we're not getting from the point guard spot, we defer to CP3. Not what he did, what he's doing at age 36. Playing like the best point guard in basketball. It's unreal. The Suns with Bridges, with DeAndre Ayton, and the rest of those crew. What would they be without CP3? It damn sure wouldn't be the best team in the NBA, I'll tell you that much. I got 2 members of the Phoenix Suns in my top 5 MVP race. Give me number 2 on the list, please. Put it up here right now. Ja Morant. Ladies and gentlemen, a superstar has arrived in Memphis, and it ain't
How about
Elvis.
last night?
It ain't Elvis. It's this dude, Ja Morant. He is something special, and we know what he brings. One of 4 plays. Listen, one of 4 plays this season, averaging at least 25 points per game, 6 assists and 6 rebounds, alongside LeBron, Jokic, and Luka. We know what Ja Morant brings to the table, but when we think about Bane, when we think about Jackson, when we think about Dylan Brooks, when we think about all of these brothers, who do we think about first? It's Ja Morant, because he's the closer, and he's the inspirational figure that's galvanized this franchise and elevated them into the mind's eye of the basketball world, the globe over. A superstar is in Memphis, damn it, and it ain't Elvis. It's Ja Morant. He ain't number 1 on the list, though. This is number 1 right here. The one and only Joel Embiid. What this guy is doing in the face of all the shenanigans that we're witnessing with Ben Simmons, looking at the way this guy has played, he is my top MVP candidate with what he is doing. There is no question about that. I know Giannis is big time with the big numbers. Milwaukee, to me, is just strolling along because they ain't about the awards. They're about the chip. They're the reigning defending champions. He's going to get his numbers in his sleep. We understand that. But Milwaukee doesn't look like Milwaukee yet. They'll look better as the season progresses. And by the time the season is over, who knows? Giannis might be number 1 again. But right now, I'm going with this top 5 right here.
I know this list is fluid.
It's fluid.
But I am a little surprised again that Giannis is not on there because if you look at numbers, Jokic, I mean, I'm glad he made the list.
Yo, Giannis got better numbers.
Yeah, he does have better numbers, but if Jokic is on the list, Giannis' team is probably better off than Jokic's. So I'm like, okay, Giannis.
Giannis ain't working against what Jokic is working against.
It's true, but I'm glad you have this. I think both the Suns, this is going to be interesting to see who they value more. Chris Paul is the more valuable per se player because he's the engine that makes things run. But we got to start putting more respect on
That's
Devin
why they're
Booker.
both up there.
I like this top 2. So you know what? I'm not going to say it's great. I'm going to say it's all right. This is Stephen A's. This is Stephen A's list. It's not Chiney's list.
Hold on.
The better list would be Chiney's list.
Do you want to do a list next time we come up?
Here's what it is. You agree with my top 2.
Yeah.
And you agree with the respect.
Okay.
The only thing you challenge is number 4.
I know.
That's better than
I know Steph
We
has
got to
been.
go to break.
I know Steph's been in
Chiney's
this
got
long.
you covered. I just have to say one thing. My grandmother called. She liked your Elvis reference, and you did it multiple times.
Hold on. Let me ask you a question.
It's 2022.
Did grandma say the
Go to
flight,
break.
the suit was fly? Did she say that?
Y'all are.
Get the like, subscribe, and share all of our channels. Check us out. Hey, tell us what you think about it. Are we hitting it on the nail on the head or are we not? Please leave a comment. Let us know. Tell us how the flow is. But don't forget, this is your boy MC D Rex, and I'm out. Peace.